Oh, yes. Oh, yes. We are about to begin. Can you guys hear me in the comments? Mic check 1, 2. All right, I see some yeses. Let's do this. It's production time. I'm Reid Stefan, realest puppet in the game. Today, we are back with another live stream. And I know it's been a while, but we're back. And today, we're celebrating a brand new tutorial called Top 12 Things. Top 12 Things I Wish I Knew as a Beginner. And these are 12 Ableton Live features or settings or shortcuts, little workflows that really made things easier for me that I learned late in the game. And I'm sharing them with you. Man, the questions are pouring in fast already. We're going to be getting to some questions today. Do I recommend a sound shield for vocal recording? I recommend good acoustic treatment in your room. If that's not possible, or if you're in a rental house and you can't put stuff in the walls or whatever, yeah, a shield is going to help a little bit, but it's going to create new problems where you're now battling boxiness, you're now battling room reflections because you're still going to be able to hear them. It's really not going to shield anything. It's just going to slightly shield. So I don't really recommend them as a solution, more of like no better option. Pretty much any option is better. Which are the best analog preamps to buy? If you're talking about for getting started, the preamps that are in your Apollo are going to be perfect. In fact, a lot of professionals who have budgets still use the preamps in their Apollo, even though they could buy a designated one. But I'm assuming you're talking about dedicated hardware ones. I really like anything that emulates a Neve 1073 on vocals. I use my Vintech X73. If you had the budget for a real one, like 10 grand, I guess I would recommend a real one. What is the best MIDI? Oh, I did a video all about this called Top MIDI Keyboards of 2020. But spoiler alert, my favorite one is this complete one right here. Complete A25. Is Ableton good? Ableton is the best. That's subjective. That's my opinion. Ableton is my favorite for making beats. Pro Tools is my favorite for recording and mixing vocals. What if I can't afford Ableton? Well, I always recommend actually starting with your interface because if you get an Apollo, it comes with a DAW. And the DAW is actually really good. It pretty much gives you everything Pro Tools has, sound quality-wise, keyboard shortcut-wise. It's called Luna. So that's a great free DAW if you get an Apollo and you have a Mac. If you don't have a Mac, maybe FL Studio. That's not free. Yeah, I don't know about the free ones. I got to try the free ones. I haven't even tried that yet. There's so many DAWs to try. Oh my goodness, I can't even read this fast. Hang on, I'm going to scroll up a little bit. Can I scroll up? Oh no, I guess I can't. All right. Best 1176 VST. That's easy. The Waves CLA 76. Tips for muddy mixing. Well, there's a couple things that can make it feel muddy. Too many instruments, maybe multiple instruments that are both bassy, or multiple instruments that are both in the same frequency range as the vocals. So there's kind of like cluttered muddiness, and then there's just too much lower mids muddiness, too much lows muddiness. So maybe it could be solved by low shelving your whole mix, low cutting your mix, or maybe taking a look at all the instruments within and saying, okay, are there too many layers? Maybe I should get rid of some and just make one or two distinct ones. What are your tips on mastering? My number one tip on mastering is not to rely on mastering to make your song sound good. Sometimes I bounce songs with no master chain on it because it sounds better that way, leaving it clipping in the red. Sometimes it sounds better to limit it and keep everything out of the red to avoid distortion. It's really what the song calls for, but I can guarantee you, you don't want to be doing some mix changing thing to your master bus. You want to be doing something very subtle. So that's my number one tip for mastering is don't be reliant to do the most in mastering. Do the least. Isn't it really bad if my song clips? No. If you're making hip hop or EDM, that's probably really good, and your song is going to sound weak if you don't. Logic or Ableton? For Ableton, I would say people interested in sound design, making music from samples. For Logic, I would say people who play musical instruments and keyboards comes with the most sounds for you to play, whereas Ableton is good for like tweaking out and turning a sound into something else. Ever tried DBX 286s? No, I haven't. I'm not sure what that is. Do you offer one-on-one training? No, this is the closest thing to one-on-one training I offer. There are too many people asking me for one-on-one training, so to help them all, I say no to everybody, and I just do these group sessions and YouTube videos. So, my apologies, but can't hire the puppet for one-on-one training. How do you remove noisy frequencies from the mix? Well, they're usually going to be in the 2, 3, or 4K area, so that's always the first place that I look for ringing. And I usually solo a narrow band. So if you just push up a bump, make a tight cue, and then solo it. And then as I sweep across, I listen for what jumps out the loudest. Obviously, they're all going to sound ringy because you're sweeping a narrow band, but some will ring louder than others. And that's what you're looking for. Best free instruments and VSTs. Contact Player is an amazing free instrument / VST, but it doesn't come with any sounds if you're using the free version. But you can use the whole loops drum kits in Contact. I guess those aren't free. The question was free ones. Man, I guess you're stuck using the stock ones with your DAW. Because I don't really know too many free ones that I love. You usually get what you pay for with software synths. What is the worst thing to do when mastering? I guess if you're going to put your song on Spotify, squashing it with a limiter. That's going to for sure leave you sounding real quiet and turned down on Spotify. How much compression do you do in your CL1B? I'm not really hitting the needle harder than 1 or 2 decibels. If I shout like that might have hit 2 decibels, but normally I'm just hitting 1. Do you recommend mixing in Ableton, or would you rather go with Pro Tools? For mixing a beat, honestly, it doesn't make a difference to me. For mixing a vocal, I would go with Pro Tools every single time. There's not some magic sound quality that you get from running your stems in Pro Tools. It's just a matter of the workflow and the stock plugins that I like. And yeah, I think shortcuts in Pro Tools make it a little easier for mixing and cleaning things up too. How long did it take you to feel confident about your mixing? Truthfully, I was pretty ignorant when I was beginning, so I was confident about my mixing from the jump, even though I didn't have a clue. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I just started posting my music up on the internet like quickly after I finished it, and then on to the next one. Back in the day, I was putting out tons of remixes up on YouTube. And yeah, so I didn't really like think about my mix or wait till I had confidence. I just posted it because I wanted to see the comments and get on to the next one. Yeah, I don't know. That was me getting started. Speaking of getting started, Today's entire video is about my top 12 tips for people getting started in Ableton. But I think there's some that are just unanimously useful too. So stick around for that at 10 a.m. That's in about 35 minutes. And until then, we're just going to keep answering questions from the comments. Wow. I'm going to read these for a second. Hang on. Do you blink? No, I don't. Wow. I cannot read this fast. I can barely read, let alone blink. Reid, what do you think of Virtual Riot? I've used those presets. Those are actually really good ones for dubstep. How much true peak headroom on the final master when converting to MP3? I don't know. I don't really think of it about like how much headroom is there when I convert it or anything like that. I just push it as loud as I can until it sounds bad and then bring it back a little bit. So it's like right before that sound bad point, but right as loud as it can go. And then I just convert it to an MP3. I don't really think about anything. Usually if it sounds good as a wave, it'll sound good as an MP3. Have you ever used FL Studio? Would I benefit from transitioning to Ableton? I've tried it a couple times. I always had a real rough experience using it. I found it has to be really challenging to learn. Not gonna lie. But some people had the opposite. Some people saw it and I'm not one of those people. So would I recommend it? Yeah, if you find someone whose videos make sense to you, then use that DAW. You'll have an easier time learning. If you find a YouTube channel that seems easier to understand than another, maybe just follow that path. That's my best recommendation because honestly, you can make the same great song in both. What would you do first? Buy a new MacBook Pro or an Apollo or a pretty good guitar? Well, if your computer isn't good, then get the MacBook Pro. If your computer's already all right, then get the Apollo. And the guitar, well, you'll just be making electronic beats until you can you can get the guitar if you go for something else first. But I don't know. If you don't know how to play the guitar, then maybe you should get the guitar first. Learn how to play and then record yourself. Vocal booth. That's a great question. I don't really love vocal booths. It's very rare to be in one that's set up correctly and sounds great, so I usually avoid them. I would rather have a control room or like a room to mix in and just put the mic in that room too. Have the stinger stand behind me while I sit here and record. That's my preference, not a vocal booth. It's easier to talk to each other too when you're in the same room. It's easier for them to see whether or not you like what they did too. VST for vocal warmth. That would definitely be a distortion plugin. The drive knob on Little Altar Boy going up a little bit adds some really nice warmth. If you're using Pro Tools, the distortion in the lo-fi plugin sounds like a great preamp to add warmth. What else? You can get some great vocal warmth out of the Ozone exciter units too. Best speakers for mixing. If you're on a low budget, I love my Yamahas. 8-inch is my favorite because I prefer not to use a sub. So that would be my recommendation for someone on a budget. KRKs are all right. They're definitely a little fun to listen to, but not as transparent. And then on the high end, I really like my ATC speakers. I went to Vintage King in Los Angeles one day and tried all the speakers in this room. Tried the Barefoots, tried the Genelecs, head speakers. What else did I try? One other brand that I don't remember. Focals. I don't know, I tried them all, and these sounded outstanding compared to the rest. It wasn't even a hard decision. brought my music, listened to it at the store. I said, oh yeah, the ATCs are definitely what I want to be hearing. They weren't even the most expensive ones. I like them better than Barefoots that cost like almost twice as much. I don't like Barefoots. That's what I realized that day too. Vocal mic recommendation. If you have a $100 budget, Shure SM58 or MXL 990 is really, really good. If your budget's in like the 200 to 300, AKG C214. 500 budget, Slate ML1. $1,000 budget, Sony C100. People always ask me about the Neumann TLM 102s and 103s in the $1,000 budget, and I do not recommend those. They're very, very harsh. I wish I could show you guys my DMs every day. I get someone asking me why their TLM 102 or 103 sounds so bad. And I hate to break it to you, it's just because they sound bad. That doesn't mean you can't make it sound good, but there's definitely better $1,000 mics you can spend your money on. Like the new Sony one. Lauten Audio makes some really good ones. Mojave makes really good microphones. But yeah, kind of depends on your budget. Summing box, ? That's more something that I would just let a mastering engineer do. Honestly, I opened so many different projects that it would destroy my workflow having to have analog gear somewhat involved in the bounce of every song. So I just use analog gear to sing through when I record singers. And that's it. Everything else is plugins. I don't have time for all the other stuff. Even though I'm sure it would sound better in some A/B tests, I simply don't care. The workflow is too clean with plugins only. I can just hire a mastering dude to run my song through some summing box if that's what I think I need. What is the requirement for LUFS on YouTube channel? Honestly, for YouTube, I don't even look at LUFS. I just go as loud as I can, put it up. I don't seem to be having the same noticeable volume reduction that you hear on Spotify. So for YouTube, I really just don't care. I go loud as I can. Same thing for all my tutorials. That's just the mix that's open while I'm mixing in Ableton isn't some quiet Spotify version. It's the as loud as I could get it version, always on my YouTube channel. Do you record 44.1 or 48? I record 48 because when I turn it above 48, my CPU starts overloading because I have so many plugins in my Pro Tools template. So 48 is pretty much the highest option I can use without overloading my CPU. I mean, I could bump it up higher and do a project with very few plugins in it, no problem, but that's not my style. I like having a lot of plugins. Acoustic foam versus insulation. I would go for the insulation. The egg carton looking things that you can put on your wall never sound good in my experience. So go for the proper thing. The rock wool or something that's called, I think. How to start music, I literally know nothing. Well, if you have your first music software, a DAW like Ableton or FL Studio, then go get yourself a sample pack and try and assemble a song from samples so that you can learn the fundamentals of arrangement, tempo, setting up a groove, laying out a track. Don't worry about sound design and plugins. Use samples because they already sound somewhat decent, finished, so to speak, and make your first song just sampling stuff. Make a loop out of some song that you ripped off of YouTube, put some drums behind it. That's a great place to start. Once you've designed your own, once you have laid out a few songs with samples, then try and design your own sounds. But understand the shortcuts, the basics, your DAW, how to get around, and then start diving into plugins because it gets really deep. Rode NT2A, a good mic. Yeah, so that's a great mic in the $500-ish ballpark. Best portable mic booth. I wouldn't bring a portable mic booth. Honestly, I would just bring a little pop filter and close mic my voice as best as I could. I really just don't mess with those little not reflector, like the shield things. Do you use a low pass filter? Yes, my preamp low cuts my mic on the way in, if that's what you mean. On my master, usually not. Sometimes I do, depending on the style of music, but especially if it's something with a long 808, definitely turn that low cut off. Music theory first, or should I start with production? Well, it depends. Are you trying to be a producer, or are you trying to be a performer? That would probably answer that. Studio One for production and mixing. I personally haven't tried it, but I know it has a lot of really good features, so I can't disagree with that. Top 5 Waves plugins: CLA Vocals, RVox, H-Delay, MV2. Abbey Road Vinyl. I love that one. And I think I got one more. Maybe the C6. I like that thing. It sounds good. What's your favorite Unison preamp? Manly Voxbox. But a second favorite is the Avalon. But truthfully, I don't add the Unison preamps as Unison preamps. I just add them as plugins later in my mix. I don't really like committing to plugins while I record. I got plenty of CPU, plenty of UAD cores. I got no need to do that. So I just record my mic and then put UAD plugins later. Although it is very unique to put a preamp thing in the console and record like that, and I know why people want to do it, I personally just don't. How to EQ nasal vocals. Sounds like you need to sing closer to the microphone. The proximity effect is what makes your voice sound bassier the closer you get. So that's kind of like an analog EQ, an imaginary one, singing closer to your mic to create more bass in the recording. That's going to battle nasally vocals. FL or Ableton for EDM production. Definitely Ableton, because that means you're going to be doing a lot of automation, and FL Studio is just a hot mess for automation. Let's see. Do you gain stage vocals after processing, putting plugins on them? No, really, the only time gain staging matters in my vocal workflow is the levels going through the analog preamp and the compressor. I'm not trying to smash either of those things. I'm just trying to have them in their kind of happy medium sweet spot. And then other than that, I'm not really worried about the levels of it, because I'm not really going above 0 with my vocals anyways. So anything below 0 is going to be good. Let's see. Oh, my cat is squeaking. Sorry about that. Do I really need to know music theory? No, not to be a producer or engineer. It'll make you a better one, undoubtedly. But I would imagine many of your favorite producers and engineers couldn't play a single song on the piano. Not all of them, just some of them. I guarantee you there'll be some in that in your list that fall into that category. Tell me the story of the collab with Kashmir. That's a good story. So, Kara just released a new song called No Evil, and the production, it was by me, Kashmir, And actually, our guitar player friend recorded the guitar and whistle samples too. So shout out to Nash Overstreet. But the song started with me, Karen, Nash, and we went on vacation one time with Kashmir and we played it to him on a boat and he loved it. It was just the old demo version. And when we got back, he started working more on it. So he added a bunch of stuff, a bunch of samples, the whole bridge section, a bunch of really cool effects to the vocals. He really went through it top to bottom and put his touch on it. And some of that was done with us together at his house. Some of that he did on his own and sent it back to us. And the song just came out 2 weeks ago. And it's out on Spinnin' and Dharma. And you can go check it out on YouTube right now and it's popping. So that's my story with Kashmir. And there's going to be a whole lot more coming. That wasn't just the one song. He's going to be producing just about all the songs with us. So let's go. When would you choose between a CLA 76 instead of a more standard compressor? Honestly, that's the most standard compressor there is, so I always choose it. Best way to isolate vocals. Izotope RX7. It works great if there's not a lot of synths in the song that you're trying to extract the vocals from. Rap songs work great because a lot of times it's just drums and vocals. You can really extract vocals well with RX7. Do you think that producers and engineers are artists? Absolutely. A solo artist is actually a band. People don't realize that. There are a lot of members of the band, and they get swapped out on a song-per-song basis sometimes, and some of the members are on every song. And that doesn't mean that, like, up on stage you have a band. I'm just saying, like, the production team is the equivalent of a band. There's one person who's really good at mixing, one person who's really good at producing. Everyone contributes a little bit to everything. The singer comes in and says, I want the beat to be more like this. And then the engineer could come in and change the beat to be a little bit more like that. Everybody on the team is producing the track. Let's see. An alternative to gross beat for Ableton Live. Oh, that's easy. Halftime by Cable Guys. It's the best $12 plugin, period. Mixing by ear or mixing by sight? Both. If you see here on my table, I have my analyzer up, so I'm always mixing by sight, but best believe me, if those things aren't there, I could certainly mix by ear too. So every time I mix, I'm doing both.
Kitty Bear's waiting for you.
You gonna let Kitty Bear in?
She's sitting by the door.
She can come in.
Wanna go in?
Kitty Bear.
Oh. Now she ran away.
Oh, of course. Now she runs away that we open the door. Anyway, sorry about that. My cat was being a menace. All right, back to the questions. Why do some engineers hate CLA vocals? Because they're mad it's too easy. Probably. That's got to be the only reason, because every engineer that I know absolutely loves it. So maybe it's someone who feels like they're out of work because CLA vocals made it too easy for people to mix their own. That's got to be the only reason someone's mad at CLA vocals I can think of. Best advice to get past the 4-bar loop stage. Maybe start a whole separate 4-bar loop. Like, don't even think of it as one idea next to another. Think of it as a whole separate one that's just in the same key. So boom, now you have 2 separate 4-bar loops. Now, to finish it, you just have to come up with some unique transition to go between it. And you've pretty much arranged the song. Best LUFS level for a pop song. I don't know, it really depends what kind of pop song you're going for, but once you put it on Spotify, it's going to play back at -14, whether you like it or not. Face reveal in the future. You ready? How do you write lyrics to a song? Instrumental first or vocals first? For me, it starts with a beat. A simple beat, but all you need is a simple beat to get a simple vocal hook down. And then from there, you build out the beat to complement whatever the idea for the hook was. So I would always say you write the beat first and then the lyrics. But there's no reason that you couldn't have a great hook in your head and say, and I'd love to sing something like this. So you just lay down a drum loop that matches it, and boom, you got the lyrics first. There's not a real rule. So if Spotify plays -14, should I mix it -14? You don't have to, but if you go way above it, be aware that you're going to end up playing back way below it. So I always mix slightly above it, let it get turned down a little bit. I don't think I've ever printed it like limited at -14. I think all my songs have gone over a little bit during the loudest part, which is okay. Love from Malaysia. I love Malaysia. I've been there before. Back when I was DJing around the world, I went there. When is it best to parallel process? When the dry signal already sounds great and you want to retain it. That's usually when I parallel process. Let's see, oh wow, the tutorial is about to premiere in 13 minutes. So for everybody who's just joined us, at 10 o'clock, I'm premiering my top 12 Ableton tips I wish I knew when I was the youngest puppet in the game. We're going to be going through my favorite settings, workflow hacks, and tips and tricks that really just help me get it done quicker. So I'm actually really excited to share these things with you guys because it's a pretty hard-hitting tutorial. What if you freeze and flatten a mono vocal with plugins in Ableton? Is it still mono? No, actually, Ableton is not mono friendly at all. Pretty much once you bounce something in Ableton, it then becomes stereo. That doesn't mean that it's not going to sound the same. That just means that it prints a left and a right channel for the audio file, and they're exactly the same. So it plays back sounding mono, but the file itself has two channels in it. It's really annoying. That's one of the reasons that Pro Tools is clearly for mixing and Ableton is clearly not, because there are some times where you might not want to just make everything stereo or bounce something as stereo. Ableton really does make it impossible to bounce something in mono or freeze and flatten. It's the same process. Tips on low end, please. Izotope, low end, what's it called? Low end focus. That's the sauce. R-Bass is also the sauce. Channel EQ in Ableton, that low shelf, is super saucy. What do you use for your monitor controller, and did you calibrate your speakers to a dB level? No, I didn't calibrate my speakers. I just put them on the stands, and for my monitor controller, it's plugged into an Apollo, so I don't even have one. And there's a button built into your Apollo to switch between your A monitors and your B monitors. A lot of people don't know that. They think you need to buy some extra device for that, but you don't. What keyboard is that? In front of me is the Native Instruments A25. Behind me is a Phantom G6, Roland Phantom G6. It's an old one. It's got a lot of classic sounds in it. And then below that is another Complete Control 49. So I like having two MIDI controllers, a big one, a small one. I usually play drums on the small one in front of me. Oh, and actually I have like a little drum pad here too. This is one of my favorite new things. And then What else do we got? Is one compressor enough for vocals? Absolutely. But I prefer to use many. You could totally compress a vocal with one compressor, though. Let's see. Is MPC Live worth it? I don't know. Actually, I never tried that. Is that a software or a hardware? Is it necessary to do mastering even if my mix is loud and clear? No. I've bounced out songs with no master chain because every plugin I put on it made it sound worse. And boom, my mastering was simply not mastering it, just leaving it where it's at. Why is the fruity limiter such taboo? The reason everyone tells you to take it out is because it's just a crappy limiter. It's not that it's like taboo. It takes all the knockout of your drums. Whenever I mix my vocals, I don't get the sound I want. Any tips? Well, your recordings might not sound great. If you're not listening to your recordings thinking, gee, these sound good, then maybe your recordings don't sound good. And it's going to be tough to put plugins on a bad recording to make it good. So I would try the recording again and see if you can get closer to the mic, further from the mic, or a different room, a different take, something to make it just sound more pleasing from the start. And then from there, you really got to isolate. Is it too bright? Is it too muddy? Is it out of pitch? You really got to be able to put your finger on the problem, which takes experience, unfortunately, to answer that. How to record with less noise. Make sure that your room is as noise-free as possible. Unplug any devices that don't need to be plugged in. Make sure that your mic is not pointed towards the noise-making source. If that's your laptop, don't point your mic at your laptop when you sing. Get it as far from your laptop as possible, in a different room if possible. After selling it, how to collect music royalties. You register it to a performing right organization like ASCAP or BMI. And then from there, if it gets played on television, played in a movie, played in a business, they'll monitor and collect that and pay you out for it. And if you're trying to collect your YouTube and stuff, sign up for something like Sound Exchange. That is how you register your music, and then they'll go find who's uploaded it to YouTube, and then it'll detect it and send that ad revenue to you. How can you create space in your mix when producing darker genres like Berlin style techno? I guess that would be reverb. Your reverb, your compression, making your reverbs interesting by gating them and cutting them off. Different types of reverbs, creating different textures. And definitely less is more. Not less reverb is more reverb, but less sounds in your song usually means more impact. Let's see. Top plugins to widen a mix. Number 1, Wider by Polyverse. 2, Waves S1 Imager. Number 3, Microshift by Soundtoys. Those are definitely my favorites. Soothe 2 or what? I'm kind of old school. I still use Soothe 1. I haven't even upgraded to Soothe 2 yet, but I'm just waiting for Black Friday. I promised myself I wouldn't buy any plugins in 2020, and I actually stuck to it. But I have a feeling on Black Friday, I'm going to say, you know what? Don't tell nobody, but I'm buying some plugins. Let's see. Oh, now my other cat's outside the door screaming too. Bubs, I'm almost done. I got 5 more minutes to my live stream, and then I'll come pet you. Do you use Logic? No. Only when I'm making a Logic tutorial. Let's see. Do you have acoustic treatment on your ceiling? Yes, I do. The same panels that are on the walls are hanging from the ceiling. But only 4 of them. I have a ton of them on the walls, just 4 of them on the ceiling. We got 5 minutes left until the premiere of my brand new tutorial. 12 Ableton tips I wish I knew as a beginner. And I know it's been a month since I've done a full-length tutorial. I've been doing a lot of short tutorials. I really enjoy doing the short tutorials, and they're not going anywhere, but the long ones are back for sure. And not only are the long tutorials back, but tomorrow we're doing this again. I'm dropping an even bigger tutorial tomorrow with a very, very special guest, and I'm not going to announce it yet. I'm going to announce it later tonight, but at this same time tomorrow, I'm going to be doing another live stream. I'll give you a hint. It has something to do with mastering. And tomorrow, I'm dropping arguably the most exciting tutorial I've ever dropped. A guest tutorial with a huge smash hit in it. You guys are going to be really, really excited. Let's see. So, but today, like I said, it's all about 12 Ableton beginner tips. Tomorrow is going to be so epic. So make sure you guys come back at the same time tomorrow. I'll be answering questions for 45 minutes. I'm going to see if I can even get the special guest in the live stream so we can both answer questions at the same time. But you guys are going to have to stick around for that announcement. So tomorrow's tutorial is going to be super epic, but today is going to start in 3 minutes. And we got time for just a couple more questions. Studio One or Pro Tools? For me, Pro Tools all day. Ableton for beats, Pro Tools for vocals and mixing. Phase, how do you fix it, please? If you feel like your kick layers are like eating each other's bass instead of adding to each other's bass, just zoom way in and nudge them around, and you'll feel it start to kind of fix itself as you go in either direction, really. Because if you're out of phase right now, you can go either way to fix it, left or right. Just zoom in and do some little micro nudges until you get it popping. Should I record vocals with a gate and soft compression? Honestly, I don't record vocals with anything committed to the mix. I just have some plugins on in the headphones, and that's compression and reverb. For a gate, I would rather just go in with my mouse and cut out the parts of the recording I don't want. I think a gate is going to make an audible effect that you might not want. So I would say just use the light compression. Don't even need a gate. Is there any third-party stereo panning plugin? Yes. Panman by Sound Toys. The Cyclosonic Panner by UAD. Really, really good. There's got to be a couple too, but those are the main ones that I use for pretty much everything. Buy or rent Pro Tools? Well, I would recommend buying it because if you want it for life, it's going to be more expensive to rent it for life. Ableton stock audio effect racks comes in the ADG format? Yes, it does. It's an ADG file that you drag right into the plugin areas of any channel, and boom, the sauce opens up. Oh my God, speaking of the sauce, my tutorial is about to begin right now. Thank you guys so much for joining today's question and answer live stream. Head back to my YouTube channel to see this tutorial about my 12 Ableton tips I wish I knew when I was the youngest puppet coming up in the game. And if you guys didn't get your question answered today, come back at the same time tomorrow, 9:15 a.m. Pacific time, for a 45-minute question and answer session leading up to tomorrow's 10 a.m. tutorial premiere. We're going back to back with full-length tutorials. So I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out.